Libros. He is a professor of media innovations here at Tallinn University. So it's your turn now.
Yes, hi, thanks for coming back. And those who aren't here, do hurry back. I'm going to introduce the next keynote speaker, who is Alan Milligan. Alan has had a lot of careers, a lot of different careers. First made his name in the US politics, then moved to the tech sector, and then to film production. Produced a bunch of films and realized in this process that there are many, many issues, ways how the film markets, film industries are really not serving the interests of filmmakers all around the world. And henceforth started a startup, White Rabbit, with which we here in Tallinn University have been a little bit collaborating, as we are interested in those same topics that Sean was just some minutes ago telling you about, the Web3, blockchains, NFTs, etc. So Alan has a lot of experience in this field, how to innovate in this area, especially having the film and the series industries in mind. But without further ado, Alan, it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to be a little stuck behind the desk today because there's a compatibility issue between Google and PowerPoint, Microsoft. So I have to use two hands, and men and two hands apparently don't go well together. So we're thinking about two things at once. So I'm here. When I was contacted to come and present a couple weeks ago, I was in the middle of writing a Medium article. Hello. I do that on my spare time. So this is kind of a media article I'm presenting to you in process. So your feedback today would be very welcome. Everything I say is going to end up here. So no need to take notes. Think, be critical, get ready for some questions. That would be perfect. Okay, without further ado, does the film industry have a future? If so, what would that future look like? What should it look like? I hope, dear God, that it doesn't have casseroles in it. Let me start by managing your expectations. You shouldn't expect me to have the answer. I don't know that there necessarily is the answer or definitive answer to our questions. Technology is always innovating. Consumer habits are continuously changing. So the answer always depends. What we can do at any given time is make sure that we ask the right questions. Here are some of the right questions for me. Where are our fans? What are they talking about? What are they sharing? Where do they spend their time? Where do they spend their money? And why? How are they part of the conversation? This is very, very important. How are they part of our conversation? And how are we, from the film industry perspective, part of theirs? And the most basic question that the film industry cannot seem to get right, despite 100 years of working on it, how do they access our films? And is it easy? All right, so we have three key fundamentals in our industry. We have the content that we watch and that the audience watches, the audience being so key to our survival, and we have transactions. How are people paying? And where is the money going for the content that they watch? Is there money at all? So to achieve sustainability, however, and independence for the film industry, we need to have ownership of all of these three. So there is the question again, who owns the content? Who owns the traffic between content and audience? Who owns the data? Very important question today. Who owns the technology? Technology means innovation. Where is the innovation coming from? And what does it mean when someone owns the technology in terms of dictating the role of the technology, and for whom is this technology created? What purpose does it serve? So I'm now going to feed you with a bunch of data, and it might feel random, maybe it is too, but my understanding of the data is that our film industry and streaming needs a revolution. So let's jump straight in and look at how the tech companies, sorry, that button, is dominating the European market. By nearly every measure, the US conglomerates have a 70 to 80% dominance over the European streaming market. Now, the European response has been twofold. One, copy Silicon Valley's business model for local streaming solutions. That'll be those in purple that have managed to make a dent in their markets. Two, force Silicon Valley to invest in local content. Seems like a good idea, right? Lots of money coming to European productions, people are getting hired. But we have issues with these solutions. First one is that subscription platforms are a poor business model, and they offer poor solutions for users. If you had every subscription in the world, hundreds of them, you could only access roughly 20% of our film history. Two, there seems to be very little concern or discussion of what is going to happen to European content that is not financed, not owned, and therefore not distributed to a European audience through platforms. I mean, these people have a monopoly. They're financing films that get distributed. What happens to the rest of us? These are publicly financed films, and these are important questions for us to ask. It's your tax money, after all. So, what are the giants up to? I'm sure you have some insights here, but they are acquiring companies at a massive rate. They've rewritten the rules in many industries, Apple, Meta, Amazon. They've made our lives easier, of course. They've pushed prices down, making things more affordable for us. And the world is a little bit smaller. We can use Uber pretty much in every country in the world. At the same time, they attacked our privacy. They consolidated and centralized power. And they created technologies that underlie dystopian visions. And this is not sci-fi. This is an active strategy to intervene in the livelihood of not only the film industry, but of hundreds of industries so far. So taking a look at this wall, they've entered into more than 420 industries outside of their core business. So whether it's retail, banking, travel and map services, music or transport, these companies redefine the industries that they enter. And they have a game plan. They enter an industry where they can artificially depress prices for the end user, preferably with borrowed capital. That's a key point, like Uber, Netflix, WeWork. They dismantle the old structures, and they rebuild the industry in their own egocentric image. Along the way, customers pay to willingly give up the most valuable asset today, data. Data covering hundreds of services, providing endless opportunities for them to outcompete existing businesses with total disregard for social impact, and then they start shaping your everyday, how you live, how we interact. We live dangerously if we're no longer guided by the intrinsic values and the principles of our industries. The giants, they know our financial and health conditions, they know who our friends are, they know who our travel habits are, they know our interests, they know our cultural preferences. The Meta scandal, where the company sold data to 87 million users to the Cambridge Analytica, is only the tip of the iceberg. And so as filmmakers, we have to ask ourselves, should we be part of this, should we be a piece in their puzzle? It's not only a moral question, it's a question of our livelihoods. Because the strategy shifts gear. At some point, the investors are going to demand profits. So the stream prices for the consumer increases, and the content libraries decrease. The original content is often flat because it's meant to serve a corporate purpose, data and investor value. The OG subscription platform is still operating today is Spotify. Founded in 2006, Spotify has never made a profit. That's 17 years without profits, except, of course, for the early investors and the founders. So the company operates on liquidity provided by venture capital. Now, in Europe, we subsidize and provide grants to startups, honestly, for survival. In the US, they conquer markets through financial doping at levels European startups could only dream of. So just back to Spotify. Of those 11 million artists, the average artist is making $12 per month, and only 0.07% of those artists are actually making a sustainable living. And to me, those numbers as a subscription platform should terrify everyone in the entertainment world. The industry cannot continue to operate one more day with the business models that are unsustainable. And that is why we have come to a halt during the SAG-AFTRA strikes. The two major sticking points, pay and data. And there is good reason neither side will budge on either. Let's also consider what effect the subscription platforms might have on our audiences. Today, it's as likely that a 20-year-old will watch a movie as it is that I will play a computer game. I'm 46 for the record. When I was 20, movies were the #1 form of entertainment. Today, it's 5th. So are films and series losing relevance in the cultural zeitgeist because easy access to our film history is counterintuitive? Have the films available just become dull? Is it the films? Is it the platforms? Or is it the competition? Well, the platform subscription services and brands are weak. They're very weak. Taking a look here at Net Promoter Scores, which is how favorable users and non-users consider the platforms, their price, what they offer. Promoter Scores above 50 is considered a world-class brand, whilst above 50 is considered excellent. Not one platform is above 50. And Apple TV, despite its legacy, is already all the way down at 17, which is a less than favorable rating. So it's zero surprise to me that platform subscription churn, i.e. the number of times people go onto a platform, subscribe, and then unsubscribe, is a staggering 57% for Gen Z and 62% for millennials. The value for money just isn't there, and we'll get back to why. So let's dive a little more into some consumer behavior. 20% of the time people go onto a platform, they give up. Because they're on the platforms and they just figure out, you know what, I'm going to do something else entirely. Why is that? Well, we spend 187 hours a year trying to find a movie to watch. That is 1 year of all of our lives spent browsing platforms. What a waste. So how do we react? Well, one of the ways that we react is piracy. 83% of those that pirate first tried to find the access to the movie legally on their platforms, and then they pirated. And piracy streaming is as big today as all the platforms combined. So actually, there is a hole in the number of us being 5th in terms of consumption, because that number isn't counted. Instinctively, we react in horror. Thieves, criminals, copyright violators, sue them, fine them, jail them. The lawyers are going to have a party over there in LA. So what are we going to do? Jail hundreds of millions of people? We're going to jail our fans? These are our customers. How about we learn from them? How did we fail them? Is there maybe even a silver lining in piracy? So if you remember back to Net Promoter Scores, despite the platforms, despite financial burden, and despite breaking the law, people continue to watch our films. Why? Because it's films and not platforms that resonate emotionally with audiences. So to whoever asked that question about if films are going to disappear, there is hope. And even the heads of the studios are giving up. David Zaslav, head of Warner Brothers, let's face it, the strategy to collapse all windows, starve linear TV and theatrical, and spend money with abandon while making a fraction in return, all in the service of growing sub-numbers, has ultimately proven to be deeply flawed. They know it. They know it. They have smashed their own business model, and they are now struggling to find what to do. Disney is possibly up for sale. And I do want to just point out theatrical, hugely important. What we have learned through a couple of years of streaming now is that movies that go theatrical and then on to streaming have bigger numbers, bigger revenue than just films that go to streaming. So theatrical, very much alive. Events, very much alive. So 54%, going back to the Gen Z, 54% of those that subscribe to a platform do so because they want a particular movie or series. Then they unsubscribe. Again, the emotional response from audiences is to movies and series, not the platforms. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the creators, they're in power. This is an interconnected and viral world. The audiences want our movies wherever they are. They're willing to break the law, but equally willing to pay for it if we just make it simple and easy to access, pay, and watch. I'm not only saying this, the gaming industry already did it. They reduced piracy in Russia by 50% between 2011 and 2013. How did they do it? Well, they gave easy access to all the games, new and old. They empowered independent developers by sharing data so they could learn about their customers and direct revenue. and they introduced in-game purchases or cross-sales in order to drive down gaming prices. That is a huge opportunity now in Web3 for movies to do something similar. All right, so I was inspired by the game industry. This was in 2018. I went on to something called Popcorn Time for the first time. I couldn't find a film, of course. It was Montage of Heck. I was an early Nirvana fan. And Popcorn Time was like Pirate Bay, but it looked like Netflix. It was actually better at the time. And then 2018, I was introduced to Web3 technology, and I thought, wow, this is the opportunity we've been waiting for. So we did an experiment. We made 100,000 films, not on platforms or in cinemas, available to purchase in Norway. I can promise you the film industry freaked out. Payments that were made for the films went directly to a smart contract. That's like an escrow account that the right holders could access at any time once they proved who they were. And they also got any data that we had, and they could control the prices of the film. They could open and close territories. It was full freedom. The audience response was immediately positive. We had 6,200 people come onto our website. It was December 27th. And you know, especially in consideration of the press and industry reaction, it was quite negative in the press, but you know, all press is good press. And what was fascinating, remembering that there were no films there that were MPAA films, there were no films that were in cinemas, there were no films that were in platforms. In fact, we redirected users looking for those films to the cinemas and to the platforms. But we still had 100,000 films available, and the most popular film was a film called Raw, which is a Belgian film. So it was very, you know, for me coming from the art house world, it was a very great experience to see the interest that people had. And the benchmarks that we hit are, you know, we were 3 weeks in operation, we had 21% of those 6,000 people install, and 6% were paying, and they were spending a lot of money to buy those films they couldn't actually access anywhere else. Unfortunately, we had to shut down after 3 weeks. I got a nice letter from the mouse over in Hollywood. He and his friends didn't like what we were doing, but for us it was important to collect the data, see the opportunity. So we put it on ice. But when we looked at what people were watching, and then we applied a global scale and we used some gaming industry achievements, you know, you could immediately see that the potential for a sustainable film industry, it's awesome. It's there. What we also proved, and this is key, is that we don't need subscription platforms to buy and stream films. The zeitgeist is alive, and it can be tapped into. So, R. Buckminster Fuller, architect and the first Mensa president, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. You probably heard it before. I would definitely recommend living by that model. So, if people are watching movies wherever they exist, on whatever platform, on whatever peer-to-peer node, we have to ask ourselves, what is a platform on the internet, and what is the internet? I think of the internet as a flow of energy. It's a river of energy, of data, of content, and transactions. On rivers, we have docks where goods are loaded and unloaded and services and products are bought. On the internet, the dock is what we call a platform. And some are e-commerce, some are ad-based. This is where you can buy a product for money. Netflix, Amazon, Alibaba, Twitter, Instagram. So these are docks on the river, and they have to lure traffic with major ad spending or services and products they provide. And the aim is to ensure the data and transactions come their way, and on some platforms, they do that by using our content. And attracting customers is not cheap. The customer acquisition cost of Netflix is $200 per customer. That's a huge number. Not one other streaming platform is profitable today. They've spent $20 billion in the last 3 years establishing their services to compete with Netflix. So if you wonder why there's a strike, why they are not paying their workers fairly, why there is no deal for writers and directors, why there is no data on the table, it's because they can't. There is no viable business model in subscription models, and the current price structures, unless they come early, Netflix with its 200 million subscribers, they're selling related products like Apple, or they're making money off selling you shoes, as Bezos famously said, so Amazon. And it's these three companies that are most likely the final gatekeepers of our entire film history and future, unless we take action. If we want to stay relevant, our film history and diversity needs to be there, all of it, everywhere, all at once. That's the world that we live in today. That's what all of us expect. It's what they taught us. And that is the alternative. Your product doesn't have to be on a dock. It doesn't have to be very deep in Amazon's jungle. Instead, content should float on the river, a continuous part of the stream, accessible, purchasable, and shareable. Piracy floats on the river. It's kept alive by fans and is as large as the platforms put together. Now, if we did with gaming what the gaming industry managed with piracy, we could access the biggest source of untapped data and revenue in the world. Memes also float on the river, shared by the entertained in return for likes and reshares. These are also transactions. Transactions, they're words, code, money, data, products, assets, and interaction. So if the internet is a river of free-flowing energy and sharing, why should we as a film industry pay the cost of rerouting traffic to a subscription platform so that they receive all the rewards when we can do it ourselves? Let's get back to social media. We spend an average of 2.5 hours per day on social media across all generations. It's where people talk, share, and buy already. Social commerce is outgrowing e-commerce by 3x. So what opportunities does that flow of energy provide for content, and more importantly, for our independence? My claim is streaming platforms, they're already passé. It's communities on networks, either peer-to-peer, social media, or messaging, that are the future of trade. To achieve independence, we cannot be a B2B industry selling to streaming platforms. We must connect directly with our audience wherever they are, and we must own the technology to connect. So that concludes the why, and let's talk about the how. As I said in the beginning, I don't have the answer. What I do know is that we proved, White Rabbit, that through pirates, or what I would call frustrated audiences, they're willing to pay for easy access to films that are not available on streaming platforms. However, the film industry was not ready and is not ready to commercialize piracy. There are too many egos and interests at stake. So we pivoted our product to offer rights holders to go direct to audiences through social media, to engage their talent, their fans, and communities to become part of the distribution solution. Just quickly here, you can see that you can access films through White Rabbit. You can go, once you've bought it, you can share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can copy the link, and then you can make a post. Now everyone can just quickly click on that link, and then double tap to Apple Pay, and then the movie starts to stream. No login, no messing about. Just watch the movie that you paid for, that someone recommended to you. And not only that, but the person who posts it can get a share of the revenue, and they can also, everyone who then buys can also share it again. So it's the viral effect of the movie industry. So we built our new product around the concept of peer-to-peer distribution, and all the transactions, again, still going to the rights holders, but now with this revenue participation model. And our ambition in White Rabbit is a greater role to play for the communities and the fans in our ecosystem. And we call this the participation economy. So I'm going to round off this talk with a small pitch I did in Silicon Valley on what we are building and where we want to go, just like a summary of White Rabbit. So there might be some information overlap, but I think I've probably fed you with a bit of data, so it might be fine to sum it up again. And then hopefully you have some questions for me. So imagine a world where we have every film ever made at the tip of your finger, where you can instantly stream it and pay for it to those who made it, and even become part of the film universe itself. So let's ask the question, are platforms the best way to distribute films? No. I'm glad I'm doing this again. So let's look at the numbers. Platform churn is up by 85% in 2021, and neither fans or investors have any reason to be happy about their service or their performance. And it's personal. And this is the fact, we'll spend a year of our lives searching for films that are not even there. And the overwhelming majority of pirates, they're forced to pirate in order to find the film that they actually want to see. So what do these numbers tell us? A platform is no hotter than its latest hit. It's films, not platforms, that are the strongest brand because they evoke the greatest emotional response in audiences. So now is the time to harness the power of networks and community for the film industry. We are connected to networks and communities through this, the phone, where we discover, share, and pay for everything. So why not turn word of mouth into the point of sale? To pay and share our film built-in ecosystem connecting film rights and film assets with transactions. The ecosystem will deliver data and predictions so film companies can flourish independently of streaming giants. For discovery, we empower communities and influencers to share films on social networks where you can buy and immediately stream films posted by people you admire and friends you trust. Now, with the power of Web3, let's go even further. Fans are creating posters and subtitles for nearly every film in nearly every language, and they're freely available on the web. We're going to harness that energy and reward that creativity and dedication with tokens. Not only will films have fan assets and fan distribution, eventually fans will finance films too and receive their investment back from each and every payment executed by automated waterfalls. We call this the participation economy. And so what is White Rabbit's business model? We take a transactions fee for everything that moves an ecosystem from one place to another. And in our opinion, platforms are passé. It is films that are the future. Please play that clip. There's coming a clip.
First, 2015. We're going to back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88. Roads? Well, we don't need roads.
So if Doc had stood here with me today, he would say, platforms, where we are going, we don't need platforms. That's it. Thank you.
So, do we have questions? Please, let's start from there.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Two questions. Regarding your Spotify slide, it had a number 0.07% of artists are able to make a living.
Yep.
Is that making a living from Spotify or making a living in general? And if it's the latter, what's considered making a living? My second question is, you said you received a cease and desist order, and you ceased and desisted.
I didn't.
You did or
no,
did not?
I received a letter.
Okay. So what's the legal status?
Okay. Thank you for those questions. So yes, let me just get back to the Spotify slide. I hope. So the Spotify slide, the 0.07% was from Spotify streams, and that was a $100,000 a year salary, which I guess if you're a musician in New York is just enough or barely enough. If you're a musician in, I don't know, Anchorage, Alaska, is probably more than enough. I believe the number is about twice that when you get to $50,000 and above. So yeah, musicians can tour, and they have additional revenue from that, of course, maybe also from their social media. But again, the average pay of $12, it doesn't exactly encourage new artists to go on board, and there is a much greater revenue potential for audiences like Taylor Swift has proven to go direct to their own audiences with the technology available. And your second question was, what is the legal status? The legal status is, I explained them, in fact, how, because the first product that we built was a browser extension, and it also had an additional function in that if you went to a pirate site and you tried to watch a film, it would stop the streaming of that film and ask you to pay for it directly. And I argued that, if we made this a mandatory installment in browsers in Europe, we would be able to defeat piracy completely. So I had a lot of film industry that were backing me, a lot of people that stayed quiet, which is very normal. And the lawyers came back to me and said, I would love to be introduced to your bosses. And the lawyers came back to me and said, that's a conflict of interest, which I thought is quite funny because the lawyers live off that conflict, don't they? So I should also probably mention there is an EU regulation in the publishing industry that says that, so in the movie industry, we use sales agents. In the publishing industry, if a book isn't published in certain territories within a certain time, if there is a way for direct remuneration to the writer, then you are actually allowed to publish it after, I think, a year or 2 years. So if it's unpublished within the market. And that is an interesting regulation for the publishing industry that actually my lawyers in France are seeing if we can exploit and look at the movie industry as well for that model. Because there are so many great movies from Cannes, Venice, from everywhere, sitting on the shelves of sales agents in Paris, and they're not getting distribution. And it's a shame for our culture, and it's a shame for our fans, and it's a shame for taxpayer money. So, yeah.
Is it me? Yeah. Fine. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I have a couple of questions for you. Aren't you yourself dependent, your business model, isn't it dependent on the big five? And how do you pay for that? Because your customers have to access the internet, which is governed by these big five, and you can't avoid using a browser, you can't avoid using a website or whatever you sort of are using to get the films to your audience. That's the first question. The second one is there every film has a community thinking among the audience? Or is it that if we talk about art house movies, is it the access to a collection? Is it a library model more than a singular movie? I think I'm inclined to think the last, but I would like to hear your take on that. Thank you.
Yeah, just starting on the library, I mean, there is a library out there. It's called piracy. It's probably the best protector of our heritage of films that exists today. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So obviously, if we wanted to convert that into revenue, we already proved that it's possible. The gaming industry has already done it in Russia. And I think that it's a missed opportunity not to actually exploit that community of peer-to-peer sharing and everyone who goes there, despite all the pop-ups and the viruses and everything else, they do it. And I find that really interesting because that's an energy that you can harness and collect. But every movie is also new movies. Is an event, or should be an event. It should be, something that people are desire to go out and hear about in the cinemas. I don't believe in the whole sort of cinemas or streaming. Cinema experience is not the same as staying at home. That's not the competition. So cinemas are still going to be very, very relevant. Events for movies, very, very relevant. And then how do you tie that happening to the digital world? Just one of the ideas that we're playing with is QR codes at the end of a movie screening, allowing you to share that movie then on social media immediately if it's a day and date release or at a certain date later on. So I think we definitely need to have the event, that something cool is happening, because that's what we want to do. We want to go do something fun and cool and hang out with some people. So I think that is key. Sorry, your first question. What was that again? Yeah, I mean, they own the internet, right? So Google searches, they must be probably up at 90%. There are 5 billion people using social media, and that is where people chat, that is where people share, that is where people buy. And the point here is that we have to be able to share our films on all of them. There's no reason why our film needs to be locked in with 200 million people on Netflix. That's minimizing our potential. But if people can share this stuff amongst 5 billion people, that's where the potential is to go viral. So yes, we have to accept that they own the internet as it is today, but we can flow on it because it is free so far, WhatsApp, Facebook, Insta, free, except for the data. But that flow we're able to ride on that, and for now we have to do that. But also, again, peer-to-peer proves that you can do it without. You can connect computers, and you can build networks that are not reliant on these major five.
So next question, a very revealing idea and innovation. The question would be, is this directly applicable to sound recordings? And is there another industry that uses this type of ecosystem of using messaging and recommendations and instant pay, small transactions? Is there another industry that uses this?
Yeah, well, yes, in theory. I don't know much about the music industry as such. I know there are many people working on similar solutions, so that kind of answers also your second question. There's a whole Web3 community that are offering various models. What I find, though, is that every model that I've come across is building a platform with direct transactions to the rights holders, and that's fine, that's nice, but how are you going to fill that platform with users? How is the word going to get around? How are you going to get all that content there? So it goes back to what I believe is that, trying to build a platform like we saw with QB, even with $1 billion and all the talent in the world, it tanks. That flow is what people get hooked onto, that people start using, and that energy is where you want to be. You don't want to be building platforms. You want to make sure that your content is available and payable on that flow of energy. So that doesn't quite answer your question, but those solutions that I have seen in other industries have been platform-based. Affiliate marketing is, of course, similar. The difference being that affiliate marketing often takes you to somewhere else, a platform, and then you got to subscribe, you got to log in, you got to read a whole bunch of whatever. And who cares? All you want to do is watch whatever you were just recommended by someone that you believe in, trust, who has good taste. And these communities are, just getting back to the communities also, they're huge. There's a community called the Palette of Cinema on Instagram. 2 million people who then each post gets between 50 and 150,000 likes, lots of comments. 2 million people interested in the color of cinema. So that's how big a niche can be once we start, once we go on a global scale. And I think that opportunity there is that there's room for everything. There's room for art house, there's room for Asian action, there's room for whatever it is that we're making. There are communities out there who are going to love it and who are going to promote it.
Yeah, thank you for this talk. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think if we connect it to the idea of Web3 in broader space, it starts to make even more sense. Because if we think of the federated universe and how we can connect and how we sort of also democratize all the big five that currently own the internet in the future don't have to own the internet, right? So I think it feeds beautifully in this idea of where the internet might go in the future. My question is, what's your strategy? I quickly checked your website, and there is few films available, very artsy films. Is your plan to continue to having this a niched platform for film enthusiasts? Or will there also be commercially successful, let's say, type of films available to it? Is this going to be the Bandcamp of the film industry, or what's your vision for the next couple of years?
Yeah, well, the strategy right now is that we, like you correctly pointed out, there's a few films there, mostly artsy, none new, and they're all older films, and it's what we've been testing in various groups. We had a very specific one looking at the Albanian diaspora, for example, to get some data from that, like what is the willingness of the Albanian diaspora in New York to buy films from Albania and Kosovo. So that was like one of those experiments that we did. Right now, I have acquired some very interesting IP, major stars, major IP, recognizable brands. What I have to do, because the film industry is slow and it's conservative and no one wants to stick their neck out, is that I have to produce my own content and distribute it from the beginning to the end exactly the way that we see that it can be done and should be done. And once that is proven, our dashboard is open for anyone to onboard. Anyone can come on, even today, upload their film, upload their assets, build a campaign, and launch it to their community. So I think probably no one's gonna, finding someone who's willing to do that with their film when they have, it's very hard. Sales agents are very, very traditional. So I think my strategy is to build by proof. Proof is in the pudding, and I'm gonna make that pudding, and then we'll see if where we end up. And of course, my ambition is. This is a sustainable business model for the film industry. The film industry from every transaction gets 70% of the revenue direct to their wallets. So I definitely hope that this or something similar that someone else is building can be the future for the film industry. Because if not, I don't think we have one.
Thanks. Very interesting talk. What do you see as three main challenges of the success of White Rabbit 3.0?
Well, my main challenges will be finding that right content and building the right campaign for the community and being first to market. So, speed is always of the essence. So I think those are probably the three main challenges.
All right. So thank you everybody for your questions, and especially to Alan for the great talk.